The rain fell in sheets, slicking the cobblestones of the narrow alley until they gleamed like polished obsidian. It was a night for secrets, for shadows to swallow truths whole. Ilara stood within one of those shadows, the chill of the damp brick seeping through her thin jacket, a sensation she registered with detached objectivity. Cold was just data. Like the thrumming bass from the club next door, or the cloying scent of cheap perfume and desperation that clung to the air. Beneath it all, however, was the scent that had drawn her here, the one that had been her sole focus for 3 weeks. Ozone, wild pine, and the clean, sharp fragrance of a coming storm. It was the scent of the target. Kaelin, the rogue alpha. A ghost story whispered among the city's supernatural underbelly. A wolf without a pack, a queen without a throne, and a problem the curators wanted contained. Ilara was their solution. A scalpel, precise and unseen. Her instructions were simple: locate, subdue, deliver. There was no room for error, no space for emotion. Emotion was a liability she'd had beaten out of her long ago. The alley door creaked open, spilling a rectangle of bruised purple light onto the wet ground. And there she was. Kaelin moved with a fluid grace that belied the raw power coiled in her frame. Her dark hair was plastered to her temples, her leather jacket clinging to broad shoulders. Even from this distance, Ilara could see the defiant set of her jaw, the restless energy in her eyes as they scanned the darkness. Those eyes, the color of whiskey and fire, settled on Ilara's shadow. Not on her, but on the space she occupied. A flicker of suspicion. This was the moment. Ilara pushed off the wall, her movements silent, economical. She was a wraith in the rain, just another piece of the urban decay. Looking for someone? Ilara's voice was intentionally soft, a fragile thing designed to disarm. Kaelin's head snapped toward her. Her stance shifted, feet planting wider, a low growl vibrating in her chest, too deep for a human ear. But Ilara heard it. She felt it in her bones. Not you, Kaelin bit out, her voice a low rasp. Her scent intensified, a wave of territorial warning. Stay back. Danger. Ilara ignored it, closing the distance. This was the dance. Feign weakness, draw them in, strike when their guard is down. That's a shame. I was hoping for some company. She offered a small, hesitant smile, the one she'd practiced in the mirror until it looked genuine. The mask of a lost, lonely girl. Kaelin wasn't buying it. Her eyes narrowed, the pupils dilating as she took in Ilara's scent. A new note entered the air from the alpha confusion. Ilara knew what she smelled. Rain, city grime, and nothing. A void. A carefully constructed blankness that was more alarming to a creature of instinct than any threat. What are you? Kaelin's voice was dangerously low. The question hung between them, sharp as a shard of glass. Ilara's smile didn't waver, but inside, a cold knot tightened. The mask was her survival. Before she could deliver another placating lie, Kaelin moved. It wasn't a lunge, it was an explosion of speed, a predator closing on its prey. Ilara was ready. She sidestepped, her body moving with a preternatural quickness that shattered the fragile human illusion. Her hand shot out, not to strike, but to press the silver-laced disc against Kaelin's neck, a tranquilizer powerful enough to drop a creature 3 times her size. But Kaelin was faster. She twisted, her hand clamping around Ilara's wrist like a manacle. The contact was electric. A jolt of pure, untamed power surged from the alpha into Ilara, and in that instant, something deep inside her, something ancient and caged, broke free. It wasn't a choice. It was a primal, desperate reaction to the raw life force flooding her senses. A faint, silvery light bloomed from Ilara's palm, tracing the lines of her skin. It was cold fire, painless but absolute. Where her fingers pressed into Kaelin's arm, the light sank in, branding the skin with a swirling, intricate sigil that glowed for a heartbeat before fading, leaving behind only a strange, tingling warmth. A mark. Kaelin gasped, stumbling back. Her eyes were wide with a new kind of shock, a dawning horror. She stared at her arm, then at Ilara. The scent of pine and storm was now laced with sheer panic, but beneath it was something else. A thread of connection, undeniable and terrifying, weaving itself between them. A bond. Alara felt it too. A searing, unwelcome pull in her chest, an echo of the Alpha's heartbeat against her own. Her mission protocols screamed in her head. Failure. Abort. Asset compromised. She had not only failed to subdue the target, she had done the one thing she was forbidden to do. She had connected with it. She had marked a rogue Alpha. And the consequences of that mistake were already crashing down around her. The world tilted, the carefully constructed walls of her control shattering into a million pieces. The scent of Kaelin was no longer just a target's signature, it was an anchor, a beacon, a part of her. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the rain a hissing curtain around them. Kaelin's shock was hardening back into rage. "What did you do to me?" she snarled, the words a guttural threat. Alara had no answer. Her own body was a foreign country. The bond was a living thing, a silver cord pulling taut between them. She could feel the furious pounding of Kaelin's heart, the frantic surge of her adrenaline. She could feel the Alpha's territorial instinct screaming that Alara was hers. The irony was a bitter pill. The hunter, claimed by her prey. It was an accident, Alara managed, the words feeling thin and useless. The tranquilizer disc lay forgotten on the wet ground. Her mission was a catastrophic failure. Her handlers, the curators, did not tolerate accidents. Survival meant disappearing, and disappearing meant dragging the source of her problem with her. "We have to go." Now, Alara's voice was sharp, stripped of its earlier facade. The mask was gone, replaced by the cold pragmatism of a hunted animal. Kaelin laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Go with you? You just branded me with some kind of magic curse, and you think I'm going anywhere with you?" She took a step forward, radiating menace. "You're going to tell me exactly what this is right here." A sharp pain lanced through Alara's temple as Kaelin moved away, a physical manifestation of the bond stretching too far. She winced, pressing her fingers to her skin. "There's no time. They'll be coming." "Who's they?" "The people who sent me. The people who want you in a cage," Alara said, her voice tight. "And now, because of this, they'll want me in one too." That seemed to finally penetrate Kaelin's rage. The Alpha's gaze flickered down the alley, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. The bond pulsed between them, a silent testament to Alara's words. It was a chain, but for the moment, it was also a lifeline. Kaelin could feel the truth of the danger in Alara's frantic pulse, a rhythm now intimately tied to her own. With a final, frustrated growl, Kaelin nodded curtly. "Fine. But you're not out of my sight until I get answers. This leash you put on me works both ways." They fled into the labyrinthine city, two enemies bound by a twist of fate, the silver cord of the accidental marking pulling them deeper into a shared darkness. They found refuge in a derelict warehouse by the docks, the air thick with the smell of salt and decay. The cavernous space offered 100 places to hide, but the bond made distance impossible. A throbbing ache settled behind Alara's eyes whenever Kaelin moved more than 20 feet away. Kaelin paced the length of a rusted catwalk, her movements agitated, feral. "Start talking," she commanded, her voice echoing in the vast emptiness. "What are you? What was that light?" Alara sat on a stack of wooden crates, wrapping her arms around herself. "The cold had nothing to do with the temperature. I work for an organization. They call themselves the Curators. They collect things. Rare things. Powerful things. Like me," Kaelin finished, her tone laced with venom. "Yes. And they don't like it when their acquisitions are damaged or bonded to their retrieval agents." Alara's life, as she knew it, was over. The sterile, controlled existence the Curators had provided in exchange for her service was forfeit. Now there was only the hunt. And she was no longer the hunter. "And the mark?" Kaelin demanded, stopping her pacing to glare down at Alara. "What is it?" "It's a protective measure. An instinct. My species, we don't let go of things we claim." The admission felt like tearing a piece of her soul out. It was a truth she had never spoken aloud. Her true nature was a secret locked in the deepest vault of her being, a curse the Curators had weaponized. Kalen's expression was a mixture of disbelief and fury. Claim? You think you've claimed me? Before Alara could answer, a sound from outside cut through the tension, the crunch of tires on gravel, too slow and deliberate for a casual visitor. Headlights sliced through the grimy windows, sweeping across the warehouse interior. Alara was on her feet in an instant, a surge of adrenaline sharpening her senses. The scent of ozone and antiseptic, the curator's sterile signature, hit her a second later. "They found us," she whispered, the words barely audible. Kalen's head was already cocked, a low growl rumbling in her chest. "How?" "Me. They have ways of tracking their assets, a collar unseen but ever-present. A leash she'd worn her entire life." Heavy, booted footsteps surrounded the warehouse. Doors slammed. The metallic click of rifle bolts being drawn echoed in the night. They were boxed in. Kalen looked at Alara, her fiery eyes searching, demanding. For the first time, Alara saw not just anger, but a sliver of fear. The rogue alpha, hunted and alone for so long, was trapped. A surge of something hot and unfamiliar flooded Alara's chest. It wasn't logic. It wasn't part of her training. It was a raw, possessive instinct that rose from the very core of her being. The bond flared, and with it, a singular, terrifying thought: they will not touch her. "Stay behind me," Alara said, her voice dropping to a low, resonant pitch she barely recognized. Kalen bristled. "I don't hide behind anyone." "This isn't hiding," Alara replied, her gaze fixed on the main warehouse doors. "It's strategy." The doors burst inward with a deafening crash, and a team of 6 figures in black tactical gear swarmed in, fanning out in a practiced formation. They carried rifles loaded with silver-tipped rounds and containment projectors. Their leader, a man with a face like a block of granite, stepped forward. His name was Administrator Thorn, Alara's handler. "Asset 734, Thorn's voice boomed, amplified by his helmet's comms. "Your mission is terminated. Surrender the lycanthrope specimen and submit for decommissioning." Decommissioning. A sterile word for a painful death. Kalen tensed beside Alara, her body coiled like a spring, ready to launch herself into a fight she couldn't possibly win. Alara placed a hand on her arm. The touch was steady, calming. The bond between them hummed, a silent channel of communication. "Wait. The specimen is bonded, Administrator," Alara called out, her voice unnaturally calm. "Protocol dictates a change in objective. Live capture of both assets is now primary." She was bluffing, quoting a non-existent rule, buying a few precious seconds. Thorn paused. The lie was just plausible enough to make him hesitate. "Your sentimentality is a defect, 734. One we intended to correct." "It seems we've run out of time." He raised his hand, a clear signal to his team. "Fire on the wolf first. Retrieve 734's remains." The world slowed down. Alara saw the rifle barrels swing toward Kalen. She felt the alpha surge of defiant rage through the bond. And she felt the cage inside her shatter completely. The curators had made her a weapon, polished her, aimed her. They had forgotten one crucial thing. They had never once asked her what she was. "No," Alara whispered. The word was not for Thorn. It was for herself. A lifetime of obedience, of fear, of containment, ending in a single syllable. A column of silver moonlight lanced down through a grimy skylight as if summoned, bathing her in its ethereal glow. Her skin began to shimmer, the faint light from the mark on Kalen's arm now erupting all over her body. Her human form dissolved not into flesh and fur, but into something far older. She grew taller, her limbs elongating, her form becoming fluid, almost translucent. Her body was a tapestry of living shadow and captured starlight, her features sharpening into an elegant, predatory visage. 2 large, feathered wings, woven from the very fabric of twilight, unfurled from her back, silent and vast. Her eyes were no longer human. They were pools of pure silver, ancient and cold, and filled with a terrible, righteous anger. She was a shade, a creature of myth that hunted the things that went bump in the night, a being the curators had foolishly thought they could control. A collective gasp went through Thorn's team. Rifles wavered. This was not in their briefing. Kaelin stared, her warrior's instincts momentarily silenced by sheer awe. The scent pouring off Alara now was not a void, but a universe of night-blooming flowers, cold stone, and the profound silence of deep space. It was terrifyingly beautiful. Alara tilted her head, her silver eyes pinning Thorn in place. Her voice, when she spoke, was a layered chorus, echoing with the power of the night itself. You wanted a monster, administrator, a blade of solidified shadow coalesced in her hand, sharp enough to sever soul from body. You should have been more specific. She moved. Not with speed, but with an absence of transition. One moment she was there, the next she was among them, a whirlwind of shadow and silver light. The tactical team, trained to fight werewolves and vampires, had no protocol for this. Their silver bullets passed through her form as if it were smoke. Her shadow blade moved with lethal grace, not killing, but disarming, shattering weapons and severing armor with contemptuous ease. Kaelin, shaking off her stupor, let out a battle cry that was pure alpha fury and launched herself into the fray. She was a battering ram of claws and teeth, a physical storm to Alara's ethereal tempest. Where Alara's shadows disabled, Kaelin's raw strength finished the job, tossing the armored soldiers aside like dolls. They fought in perfect, terrifying sync, their movements weaving around each other as if they had been partners for a century. The bond between them was no longer a chain, it was a conduit, a channel of shared intent and instinct. In less than a minute, it was over. Thorn's team was a groaning, disarmed pile on the floor. The administrator himself stood alone, his face pale, his weapon broken at his feet. Alara solidified before him, the tip of her shadow blade resting against his throat. "My name," she said, the chorus of her voice soft but absolute, "is Alara. And you will never hunt anyone again." She didn't kill him. She did something worse. She reached out and touched his forehead. He screamed as she pulled the memories of her, of Kaelin, of every creature he'd ever caged, from his mind, leaving him a hollow shell. He would be no more threat than a frightened child. As the last echoes of the fight faded, Alara's form slowly receded, the starlight and shadows coalescing back into the familiar shape of the woman Kaelin had met in the alley. She swayed, the exertion of unleashing her true self for the first time in years taking its toll. Kaelin was at her side in an instant, her strong arm wrapping around Alara's waist, holding her steady. The contact was grounding, the warmth of the Alpha's body a stark contrast to the cold power still thrumming beneath Alara's skin. A shade, Kaelin breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "I thought you were all just legends." "Most of us are," Alara murmured, leaning against her. The scent of pine and storm was a comfort now, a safe harbor. "The curators found me when I was young. They contained me." She looked up at Kaelin, her eyes vulnerable, human again. "I'm sorry. For all of it. The hunt, the mark." Kaelin shook her head, her gaze sweeping over the wreckage of the warehouse, then settling back on Alara's face. A slow, genuine smile touched her lips for the first time. "Don't be. You marked me, yes. But you also just freed me." She gently touched the place on her arm where the sigil lay hidden beneath her skin. "And from the looks of it, I freed you too." The bond between them pulsed with a new warmth, a quiet thrum of understanding and acceptance. They were free, but they were also fugitives. The curators were a vast organization. This was only the beginning. But as Alara looked into the Alpha's whiskey and fire eyes, she felt no fear. Only a profound, transformative hope. She had spent her life as a weapon in a cage. Now, standing beside the fierce, untamable wolf she had been sent to capture, she was finally, terrifyingly, gloriously wild. And she would never be caged again.